Yeah, but I'm guessing it's going to be the place with the three fish grapes in the background, John said. Charlie glanced at each of them for a second before fixing her eyes back on the road. They were safety in numbers. Last year, when they were trapped at Freddy's together, Chica was the one who had gotten them inside the restaurant in the first place. She was brave, even when she didn't want to be. And that meant more than whatever notion of romance John was entertaining. Charlie, turn right, John exclaimed. She yanked the wheel, barely making the turn. Focus. Immediate murder first, everything else later. Before them lay sprawling fields, lots marked out and prepared for construction and future development, but never finished. Some had never even begun. Slabs of concrete were stacked here and there, almost completely obscured by overgrowth. A few lots away, steel beams had been erected to make a foundation that was never filled in. The place had decayed before it was completed. In the farthest lot back was a cluster of what seemed to be finished apartment complexes. Grass and weeds grew rampant and around them. However, climbing up, there were walls and looked like years of growth. It was hard to tell whether anyone lived inside. Years ago, the city had been diligently preparing for a population boom, one that never arrived. Are there even people out there? Jessica was gazing out the window. There must be. There are parked cars. John craned his neck. I think those are cars. I don't know where we're supposed to look, though. I think we just have to drive around. Charlie slowed the car as they traversed the road leading toward the buildings. Maybe not, John said. I bet it's somewhere near the edge of the development. Most people would probably call the police if they saw 8-foot monsters digging holes in someone's backyard. There is a lot of visibility out here. Of course, Charlie said with dreadful voice. They're buried out of sight and strategically placing themselves so as not to be found. She looked at John exponentially, but he just stared back. You're intelligent, she explained. I think I must have liked it better if they were just roaming the streets mindlessly. At least, then someone could call the National Guard or something. Charlie kept her eyes on the fields. They drove around the outer edges of the development slowly, looking at the yards of each house. Some of the buildings looked abandoned, the windows boarded up or torn down completely, opening the apartments to the elements. The storm had done its damage, but little had been done to repair it. A tree had fallen across one Colossae, blocking a building up completely, but it didn't look like anyone was trying to get in or out. The tree rotted there it lay. There was litter strewn into the abandoned streets, collecting in the gutters and bolstering the curbs. Maybe one apartment and five had curtains in the window. Occasionally, they passed a parked car or a toppled tricycle on the patchy grass. No one came outside, though Charlie thought she saw a curtain pull shut as they drove past. In two backyards, there were above ground pools filled with rainwater, and one had a large trampoline. Its springs rusted and its canvas torn. Just a second. Charlie pulled to a stop, leaving the car running as she approached a tall wooden fence. It was too high to climb, but there was a single board that hung loose off its nail near the base. She squatted down and pried it away to peek inside. Two round black eyes stared at her. Charlie froze. The eyes belonged to a dog, a massive thing which started to bark, its teeth gnashing and its chin clanking. Charlie slammed the door back in place and walked to the car. Okay, let's keep going. Nothing? Jessica asked dubiously, and Charlie shook her head. Maybe we didn't make it this far. I think they did, Charlie said. I think they're doing exactly what they meant to. She pulled the car over to the shoulder of the winding road and looked at the apartment buildings on either side. This could have been a nice place to live, she said softly. Why are we stopping? John looked confused. Charlie leaned back to her seat and closed her eyes. locked in a box. A dark, crammed box. Can't move, can't see, can't think. Let me out. Her eyes flew open. She grabbed the handle of the car door in a panic. She pulled against it hard. It's locked, John said. He leaned across her to pull up the button lock. I know that, she said angrily. She got out and closed the door. John moved to follow her, but Jessica placed her hand on his shoulder. Leave her alone for a minute, she said. Shirley leaned over the trunk, prompting her chin on her hands. What am I missing, Dad? She stood up straight and stretched her arms over her head, turning her whole body slowly to study her surroundings. There was an empty lot behind the development, not far from where they were. It was marked out with telephone poles, only one which had wires. A breeze dragged the loose wires through the dirt, scattering gravel. It didn't look like it had ever been paved. There's a coil of barbed wire as tall as Charlie, sitting uselessly in a corner. Empty cans and fast food wrappers littered the ground, the paper quivering and the cans rattling in a slight wind, like they sensed something awful. The wind rushed up behind Charlie and blew past her, straight toward the field, rustling the papers and cans and sending waves across the patches of brown grass. Something wrong is planted here. Filled with a new energy, Charlie opened the car door just enough to lean inside. That lot, we have to go look. What do you see? It's kind of out of the way, John said. Charlie nodded. You said it yourself. If an 8-foot monster is digging up the neighbor's backyard, someone's going to notice. Besides, I have a feeling. Excuse me. Charlie got out of the car and John followed at her heels. Just Charlie already had the trunk open. She pulled out a shovel, the big modular flashlight she always kept close by, and a crowbar. I've only got one shovel, she explained, making it clear she was keeping it for herself. Jessica took the flashlight and made a practice swing with it, as if hitting an invisible assailant. Why would you even have a shovel? Jessica asked in a suspicious tone. Aunt Jen. John said it in a way of explanation. Jessica laughed. Well, you never know when you might need to dig up a robot. Come on, Charlie said, tossing John the crowbar and starting off. He caught it with ease and jogged beside her, leaning it so Jessica wouldn't hear. How come I didn't get the shovel? I figure you can swing a crowbar harder than I can, Charlie said. He grinned. Makes sense, he said confidently, gripping the crowbar with new purpose. When they reached the edge of the lot, John and Jessica stopped, looking down at the ground before them, as though scared of what they might step on. Charlie went ahead across the loose dirt, gripping the shovel tightly. The field was mostly burned soil, studded with large mounds of gravel and dirt that had been left for so long that grass had begun growing on them. This must have been the dumping ground for when they were building, John said. He took a few steps into the lot, avoiding a broken glass bottle. At the opposite edge was the tree line. Charlie studied it carefully, tracking its path back to the direction they'd come. John knelt beside a pile of gravel and carefully poked it with his crowbar, as though something might leap out. Jessica had wandered toward a cluster of bushes. She crouched to pick up something, then quickly dropped it and wiped her hands on her shirt. Charlie, this place is disgusting, she cried. Charlie had reached the tree line and began walking alongside it, studying the ground. See anything? John yelled from the other side of the lot. Charlie ignored him. Deep grooves in the dirt extended from the trees, snaking around the bushes. The large rocks nearby were freshly marked with gashes and scrapes. Not exactly footprints, Charlie whispered as she followed the grooves in the soil. Her foot touched soft ground, a sudden contrast to the hard-packed dirt of the rest of the lot. She stepped back. The dirt at her feet was discolored, familiar. Charlie struck her shovel into the ground and started to dig, the metal rasping noisily in the gravel mixed in with the dirt. Jessica and John ran toward her. Careful, John warned as he approached. He hefted the crowbar in his hands like a baseball bat, ready to strike. Jessica hung back. Charlie saw that her knuckles were white in the flashlight's handle, but her face was calm and determined. The dirt was loose and came away easily. At least the blade of the shovel struck metal with a hollow clunk, and they all jumped. Charlie studied the shovel to John and now the mess of scattered earth, brushing away the dirt with her hands. Careful, Jessica said, her voice higher pitched than usual, and John echoed her. This was a horrible idea, he murmured, scanning the area. There's a police car where you knew one, or any car. It's still day for a little while longer, Charlie said absently, focused on the ground as her hands run through it. Primary rocks and clods of dirt, digging to find what lay beneath it. Yeah, it's day. It was also day when that twisted foxy attacked you earlier, remember? John said more urgently. Wait, what? Jessica exclaimed. Charlie, get away from there. You didn't tell me that. She turned on John accusingly. Look, a lot has been going on lately, okay? John raised his hands, palms out. Yeah, but if you're going to sign me up for this stuff, then you need to tell me about things like that. You were attacked? Sign you up for this? You had one foot in the car at the first mission of murder. You practically invited yourself. Invited myself? You talk like I crashed your date, but you didn't exactly fall over yourself to refuse my help. Jessica putting her hands on her hips. Charlie, John sighed. Can you please talk to you? Oh, geez. He jumped backward, and Jessica followed suit as soon as she looked down. Beneath them, gazing up from the loose dirt, was an enormous metal face, staring toward the sun. Charlie didn't say anything. She was still busy scooping away the soil from the edges, revealing two rounded ears on the side of its head. Charlie, is that Freddy? Jessica gasped. I don't know. I think it was supposed to be. Charlie heard the anxiety in her own voice as she stared down at the large, lifeless bear with its premature smile. The crude metal frame was covered with a layer of gelatinous plastic, giving it an organic appearance, almost embryonic. It's huge, John gasped, and there's no fur, just like the other Foxy. Charlotte's hands were getting sore. She cleared the hair from her face and stood up. It was Freddy, but somehow not. The bear's eyes were open, glazed over the inanimate look of lifelessness Charlie knew so well. This bear was dormant for now. Charlie, we have to go. John said with a tone of warning, but he didn't move, still staring downward. He knelt beside the face and began to claw the dirt above its forehead, clearing the earth away until he saw it. A filthy, battered black top hat. Charlie felt a smile tugging in her mouth, and she bit her lip. We should call Burke, Jessica said. Now. They all turned back toward the development as the wind rose again, rushing past them and making waves in the tall grass. The earth was still, and the sun was sinking slower and lower beneath the rolling hills in the distance.